Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle, and this is Grab a Cuppa. If you're new, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back to my channel. This is a channel where I like to talk about stories and everything story related, mostly books, but also some TV shows, some film, anything that has to do with a story. I wanted to take a little bit of time to introduce myself. I saw that there's a tag that everybody's kind of doing with BookTube Newbie with some questions. So I wrote them down here in my little journals. If I have to look down every once in a while, sorry. Um, but yeah, so let's get started. Wanted to introduce you to myself and a little bit of things about me. So the first question, why did you start a BookTube channel? And short answer, I'm addicted to YouTube. I'm addicted to books. Long answer, um, I've been off work for about 4 months with ankle surgery and was non-weight bearing, so it was pretty boring for the past 4 months. Um, in that time, I think I've read about 31 books, watched a ton of TV. I think I've done every streaming series that could possibly be on. But yeah, so I was really bored, and like I said before, I'm addicted to YouTube. I belong to a couple of communities on YouTube over the years where I've gotten to know a lot of people, and I just absolutely love it. We live in a different world where we can be open to finding people from different countries. One of the communities that I'm involved in is a Star Wars YouTube community. Started from there, just watching some videos, and then they had a Discord server. I Just so you know, I'm a geek. Okay. Star Wars nerd from the originals. Went to see Star Wars whenever it first came out in the theaters. Was one of the first people to see it at one of the exclusive showings. It was in Pittsburgh, where I'm from. My grandfather took me, and I'm just a huge geek with it. I go to Star Wars Celebration, and through the YouTube channel and the people that I met on there, we ended up meeting whenever we would go to the conventions. And they're just a bunch of great people. Learned a lot from them, got to be really nice, really good friends with quite a few people from there, had a lot of fun. So, wanted to kind of bring something like that to this channel. Just other story nerds that are out there like me wanted to find a space like that. There's different booktube channels that I follow that I absolutely love. Some of them are geared more towards thrillers, some of them towards romantasy, uh, some of them just general fiction, but they all seem to have like their own little niche. And I'm a big mood reader, big TV mood, it depends on what I'm watching. So I wanted to kind of leave it open, just the general stories that there are. Question number 2. What are some unique things that you bring to YouTube? So like I said, I'm interested in all kind of stories, not just thriller, not just books. I really and truly believe that stories are what connect us, what unite us as a people. There are way too many people out there right now that are divisive, that would have us think that we're different um, from everybody else. We get put into different little subcategories, and you're taught to stay in that. But if you look back through history to the beginning of time, there have been stories, and the stories are all the same. Um, there's no new stories out there. You can tell it in a different way, bring your own vibe to it, but the same themes, that's why they call them common themes, because they're common. They're common to everybody. When if you just look at Squid Games, can't remember. Anyway, not important. It was a Korean television series, and it took the world by storm because it had the same common themes and character traits that everybody could identify with. If you look at the world, it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're from China, if you're from Pakistan, Iran, the United States, South America, every continent, Australia, everybody wants the same things. Everybody's concerned with, you know, finding love, I won't say everybody, but most people are, with finding love, whether it's romantic love, family love. Um, it's just common different things that unite us. Everybody wants to have a good life. They care about their children, their grandchildren, their parents, their friends. And that's what stories are about. It's that connection. So that's one of the things that I want to focus on with how these stories connect us. The second thing is I'm old. I never thought that I would be in my mid 50s, but here I am. I'm 53, and whenever I look at nothing against the booktubers that are out there, but most of them happen to be in their 20s and their 30s. And a lot of the books that they are focused on are current books. That's fine. I love those. I read current fiction. I read romantasy. I read thrillers, the new popular books that are out there. I watch the same things on TV. But I also have that older perspective. Going back, when I was a young teenager, waiting for the Sweet Valley High new book to drop. So I do bring that perspective that's a little bit different, that Gen X kind of perspective to things. The third thing, I'm a teacher. I'm currently a sixth grade ELA teacher with English, that's like English language arts, reading, writing, grammar. So whenever I'm reading books, one of the things that I read is middle grade novels. I do read some picture books too. Uh, don't not really focused on those that much, but I love children's stories. So if you're somebody that's on, I will be reviewing some of those. Last month, I read one. It was fantastic by Jasmine Warga, uh, The Unlikely Tale of Chase and Finnegan. Cried through the end of it. Even though it's a children's book, it's the same kind of themes and traits that as an adult we look for in stories. It was about found family and acceptance and overcoming your fears. So I will be doing some reviews of children's books. If you like children's books, that's fine. You might be somebody who's looking to get your child or a child that you know into reading. And I have a lot of great suggestions and recommendations. That's one of my big things that I focus on as a teacher, is getting students excited about reading and reading books. And I pat myself on the back a little bit, but I'm really good at it. I bring that passion for books to the classroom, and it doesn't resonate with all of them, but it does rub off on some of them. Uh, so yeah, that's one of the other things that I bring that's a little bit unique. Question number 3: what are you most excited for? Like I said, one of the things that I'm most excited for is just building a community. Even if it ends up being 5 people that watch my channel, getting to know them, getting to know their stories, what stories they like, what resonates with them, getting some new book recommendations. That's the thing that I'm most excited for, that I'm looking forward to, and that I really want to focus on. Another thing is maybe starting like an online book club. I don't know where this channel will go. I might do 10 videos and then stop, but I'm hoping that I don't. But yeah, to have some sort of an online book club. Hey, this is what we're reading. Go on and, through Fable, or not sure quite yet how to do it, but have some way that, we can at your own pace do a book club. And then just another one is exploring my own creativity. I guess I shouldn't hit my microphone. Exploring my own creativity. I like to be creative. Uh, in the past, I'd say like 10 years or so, I haven't had a chance to do that much, with the demands of bought bought a house, bought my grandfather's house. I've been remodeling that, uh, going and, schoolwork, teachers. Even though I'm off in the summer, we're still doing a lot of stuff for school in the summer, preparing for the next year, shopping. So haven't it's been really really focused on work, and I haven't had that chance to be creative. Even though I've been largely just sitting around in the past couple of months, I've been able to be more creative again. I started building book nooks, which sounded so crazy. Like I thought they were pretty at first, but I just wanted to buy one already made, and started building. I bought one, started to build that. Loved it. I'm completely addicted to it now. Having something from these teeny tiny little pieces and then seeing at the end, this beautiful creation. Even though it's something that somebody else made, when I'm putting it together, you get that sense of accomplishment at the end. So that's one of the other things that I'm really looking forward to. Question 4. There were two different ones that I saw whenever I was going through some different BookTube newbies. Um, One was, why do you like reading? And I think I've kind of answered that. It's that connection, those common themes, but it also helps you grow as a person. I really think the more people read, the more empathy that they build for what other people are going through. And also it's fun and it's an escape whenever you're, when you've had a rough day and whenever the world looks like crap around, um, it you can escape. You can, with books, you can be whoever you want. You can go wherever you want. If it's, to another planet, another galaxy, on a pirate ship, even if it's just, modern contemporary life, you get to just lose a little bit of the craziness that's around us. Um, the other question, number 4, that I kept seeing was, when did you start reading? So I can't remember not reading from the time that I was a little kid. My mom and my grandma, my Aunt Jackie were big readers, and they gave me, it was just something that you read in my house. Even my grandfather would always say he wasn't a reader, but he'd read 3 newspapers every day. He back in the old days, whenever you had newspaper in the morning and a newspaper in the afternoon, he would read both of them cover to cover. So everybody in my family's been a reader. Even when I was little, like I said, I don't remember not reading. I had the little, for those older people, might remember the little record players, and you would put the little 45 records onto the record player, and at the same time you would read a book with it. I had those. So even if I wasn't decoding the words, I was still, to me, that was reading. And don't remember don't remember a time in my life that I didn't have books around me and that I wasn't reading, something. Even if it was a record book, I was still reading. Um, but to build on that, I do remember when I actually started buying books, and I was 8 years old. We were at the mall, and my mother wanted to go into the bookstore. I had like my allowance, and she said, why don't you go buy a book? And I still remember the first one that I bought, and it was called First Love. I think it was either Bantam or Silhouette, like young teen series, which, looking back, it was a little bit maybe older, but I always read at an older level from where I was. Now I kind of do the opposite because I'm older, in my 50s, and I'm reading, I read some YA, I read some children's books mixed in. So I've just always, you know, loved to read with different genres. But yeah, I remember that first one, and then I was hooked from there. Um, would, all my money all the time be going, can I go to the mall? Can I go to the mall? But back in the day, Kmart, Hills, Murphy Mart, they all had books. I started at that point just buying a lot of books. It's an addiction. What book series got you into reading? So, like I said, I remember the little record players, and I had the first one when I was a little kid. It was The Legend of Pecos Bill. I still remember it. That was there were all, I can't remember the name of the series that it was, but it was Pecos Bill, and then there were a couple other ones, but they were like the tall tale kind of series. That was the first ones that I had as a little kid, but the ones that I started series like buying and really following, Little House on the Prairie. That was really the first. I read all the Little House books. I wanted to live in a little house on the prairie somewhere. I don't, because I realized like that life was rough looking back, but whenever, you're a kid, you fantasize about that, and it just seemed so beautiful and so romantic and filled with adventure. The Anne of Green Gables series, then Little Women. When I was probably 11 or so, I started the Sweet Valley High series, if we're talking about series, but then the first getting into more adult books, there was a series that was out by Dana Fuller Ross. It was called the Wagons West series, and it started with book one, Independence, and it carried on. That was the wagon train heading west. So the first one, they ended up in Independence, and from there, then they met a bunch more people and took off. It went to Nebraska, Wyoming, ultimately to Oregon. Even whenever they reached Oregon, the series kept going, because then there was the Texas War. So there was Texas, California Gold Rush. That series really hooked me. I had all of them. Uh, Michael Whip Holt, he carried a bullwhip. He was the wagon master. He was my first fictional book boyfriend. I loved Whip Holt. I still loved Whip Holt. I still love Whip Holt. Um, my Aunt Jackie ruined it for me. She says that she didn't. She says I'm making it up. She did tell me eventually how he died. She told me a whole bunch of things. Just want to throw that out there in case she's watching. Still remember. When I was about 13 at Christmas, my mother had bought me my first adult romance. It was The Flame and the Flower by Kathleen Woodowes. And my grandmother was then like, well, she can read those, then she can read these ones. And they were adult romance, but they wouldn't allow me to read books with a lot of spice in them. Um, the Jude Deveraux Velvet series, that was my first. That's really still one of my all-time favorite series in adult romance. Love Jude Deveraux. She's still writing. Um, it's a little bit different now. She doesn't really focus too much on the romance. She gets creative, but the Velvet Saga, the Montgomerys, I just loved those guys. Still, that's why nobody can compare to a Montgomery or a Taggart. Next question. So, what kind of books do you read? Mostly fiction. I do read some nonfiction every once in a while, but like I said, I like to escape whenever I read. So, not too often, but if the last one that I bought last summer was a James Patterson nonfiction about the Idaho murders. Um, so I will every once in a while read books like that, not just serial killer, not just murder stuff. Um, the nonfiction has to really, really interest me, though. Most of the time, it's fiction, and I'll read everything in fiction. Uh, I've gone through periods where like I said, with Wagons West, I was so obsessed with, that whole Western style book. I went through a period where I just absolutely loved, anything to do with the Civil War. So a lot of historical fiction. Uh, but I then, like I said, romance too. Now romantasy, YA, did branch out later in life more into thrillers. I don't read too many horror stories. Um, I think Stephen King is one of the best writers of the last 100 years. If you go, a couple hundred years into the future, he's going to be seen as one of the all-time great writers. But at the same time, I don't like his books, if that makes sense. That's not my genre. I'm not typically into scary books. His writing though is just fantastic, from the few that I have read. Some science fiction, not too often. I do read. I think they're down. I don't know if you can see them down here. I have some of my Star Wars books, Project Hail Mary, things like that, but not too deep into science fiction whenever it comes to that. But still, if it's good, I'll read it. Um, Next question, where do you read? Everywhere I can. Everywhere I can. I don't have a bathtub anymore. I have a shower now. Used to love to read in the bathtub. Just relax, I'd be locked in there for hours. When I was a teenager, my mother was constantly yelling at me to get out. I just love to soak in the tub. You could turn the faucet with your toe, warm the water up. Uh, on the couch, in bed, in a chair in my house. I did just buy a Kobo, so because I don't like to usually, I'm always afraid with my books if I take them out too often, something, I've lost books, things have happened to them, I've spilled things on them. So looking forward to, with the Kobo, being able to read more places. Um, just, throw it in my bag. If I'm in my car waiting for something, I can, even at a doctor's office, I can pull that out and read it. Uh, the other thing with the Kobo, I do read, I have a pool, and I don't read in it that much because I'm afraid of getting the books wet. So in the summer, I'll usually grab like one or two trade paperbacks, and those, I still don't like to ruin them, but I don't get that upset. I will never take a hardback book to the pool because I'm too big of a klutz. And not even that, but your fingers get damp. I don't want to subject the pages to that. So with the Kobo, I can read more in the pool. I do read sometimes out on my porch, but that's usually in the evenings. I'm allergic to bees, so I try not to. It seems like they're just attracted to me. Uh, but yeah, so anywhere I can is where I like to read. What does your book collection look like? So I have some of them here on this book ladder. I have another book ladder that I just bought that I'm going to put up on the other side um, of the room. I have, my book collection looks like this, and it looks like a bunch of boxes of books. Whenever I bought my house, I packed up all my books, and a lot of them were older books. Didn't take them out. I have cartons and cartons of books in a spare room upstairs. But then also, I got a pile of books over here. I got a pile of books over there. I have a pile of books in my bedroom. I have books, in my game room. I have books piled up everywhere, just everywhere. That's what it actually looks like. It looks like a big hot mess. Next question, I think it's number 9. What question would you ask your favorite booktubers? Since most of my favorite booktubers, like I said, are in their 20s and 30s, I would ask them how they choose their books without social media. If there was no social media, if you had to go back to how I used to have to read books, um, we didn't have online. We didn't, in the 80s and 90s, we did not know what new book was coming out. Had to go to the bookstore, had to go to the library. So that would be my big question. If there was no, you know, internet online, how would you be choosing your books? Number 10, challenges to overcome with YouTube. My biggest one would be work balance. Like I said, I've been off for the past 4 months, and I go back to work in a couple of weeks. Only have to work a few weeks, and then I'm off for the summer. So that would be my biggest challenge, is being able to figure out how to balance, filming, being able to still read books, do all the other things, adult responsibilities, and still make time to do this. Second one would be editing. Uh, I'm trying. It's something that I'm learning how to do. So that's a big challenge. I see everybody with fancy edits. You're not going to see fancy edits on here, and I don't have a lot of money, so I'm not paying somebody to do it. Finding filming locations. So my house is a mess. It's lived in. It's not dirty, but I have stuff everywhere. So I found this little space, excuse me, to be in front of, to kind of have some books in it. Like I said, like, what else? Where am I going to sit in front of a bunch of boxes of books? Uh, I am, the one room that I have upstairs, I'm turning that into a little office. So going to, have my books up in there. Once I get that done, then obviously, I can do some filming up there and have it set up. But yeah, so those are what my challenges would be. That's it. If there's any other questions that you want to know, feel free to drop them in the comments. Uh, Please, if you like this, subscribe to my channel, and looking forward to building that community and talking with everybody. Thank you so much. Bye bye.